Gavin Newsom tried to go against Trump, and Gavin Newsom lost at the courts. This is about his trying to block Trump's ability to use the National Guard. Gavin Newsom tried to put them back under California authority, and judges blocked him. But this is the major good news. Anytime Trump's winning in a court, and these judges, some of them were appointed by Democrats, it shows that his instincts and his gut are aligning with American law. So welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. Let's watch.
If I was in California's legal position here, I would tell the governor, you don't want to appeal this. You don't want to bring this up to the Supreme Court. Yes, you have the option to ask them to take it. That's your sort of last best chance here. But I think you're going to lose, California. I think if you look at this opinion, it was a 3-0 unanimous opinion from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. You had 2 Trump appointees and a Biden appointee on that court. I don't see any way any of the 6 conservatives on the Supreme Court say, sure, a trial-level district judge can overrule the president on this.
This is going to go into why this is bad strategy for Gavin Newsom to appeal this court case. He could appeal it if he wanted to and go all the way up to the Supreme Court. What it's going to end up doing is establishing precedent more and more against this giant Democrat tactic to use these lower courts to try and overrule what the president does. So right now he's going like, back off, Gavin, this is a bad strategy. I like it. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is famous for being the loopiest, craziest court in the country. And all 3 of the judges, 2 appointed by Trump, 1 appointed by, I don't know if it was Biden or a Democrat, but they went unanimous on Trump's side. And you know, many of these people don't want to do Trump any favors.
This issue just because he disagrees. I even think some of the liberals might join with the conservatives on this, as we saw with the Biden appointee. So it's an interesting strategic decision. If they do bring it up to the Supreme Court, California, and if the Supreme Court rules again in favor of the Trump administration, then that's going to be nationwide binding, an even bigger loss for California.
Yeah, so do appeal it, Gavin. That's what I'm voting for. Gavin Newsom, you got to fight this thing. Liberal, you got to fight this thing. Take it all the way to the Supreme Court and let's establish a national precedent. Stare decisis is what I say. Here's the actual court case. Breaking a federal appeals court has indefinitely blocked Judge Breyer's order to put Gavin Newsom back in control of the National Guard, ripping it away from Trump. The 3-judge panel, which included 2 Trump and 1 Biden appointee, was unanimous. So this is just a death knell for this conversation. This is Gavin Newsom in his official capacity as governor of the United States, California, versus Donald J. Trump in his official position as president, and Gavin Newsom lost. This is an appeal from the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. Let me see what this other part of the document looks like. We also conclude that any other stay factors, irreparable harm to defendants, injury to plaintiffs, and the public interest weigh in defendant Donald Trump's favor. Thus, we grant the motion for a stay pending appeal. So we're going to find out now, does Gavin Newsom appeal and prove that he really believes in this thing, or was it all just politics? Here's more of the breakdown of the details. We're going to get into more details now with Jonathan Turley, one of my favorite legal thinkers over on Fox News. He wrote this article, Ninth Circuit rules for Trump on the National Guard deployment. Governor Gavin Newsom lost a major ruling in the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, which ruled that President Donald Trump is likely to prevail in his deployment of National Guard troops. This gives Trump a lot more authority against those riots, against controlling riots, and in defense of ICE agents. Newsom and various Democrat politicians have insisted that Trump's order is unlawful, other than the loopiest court in the land said it was lawful, and that Newsom has to agree to any request for deployment. The Ninth Circuit ruled on Thursday that Newsom does not have such a veto over deployments. The Ninth Circuit blocked the injunction of District Court Judge Charles Breyer, lower district court, who suggested in open court that Trump was acting like another King George. Okay, so all King's Day, no King's Day, proven false by even a Democrat court. One Democrat on the court anyways. So all the acting like a king stuff, that narrative, bye-bye, your branding didn't stick. He then wrote an opinion that included many Democratic talking points, suggesting, for example, that Trump was creating disorder by calling out the National Guard to deal with disorder. Breyer. It's just that the argument does not make any sense. Breyer further indicated that the violence in Los Angeles was relatively minor. You saw the burning cars, the police overwhelmed, Antifa and all of the Soros-funded protesters. They would go to one area, then they'd go break out in another area a few blocks down or a few miles down. They were also expanding it to other states. Not relatively minor, despite potentially deadly attacks on law enforcement, arson, and looting. Breyer gave the administration little time to appeal this ruling, but it was enough for the Ninth Circuit. Title X provides whenever the United States or any commonwealths or possessions is invaded or in danger of invasion by a foreign nation, there is number two, or there's a rebellion or danger of a rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. Remember, ICE agents are federal, not state, or the president is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. The president may call into federal service members and units of the National Guard of any state in such numbers as he considers necessary to repel the invasion. That is, they go under his control, even though it's a state National Guard, suppress the rebellion or execute those laws. By the way, it's so much easier for Trump to do this with the National Guard. Where he went a little iffy was when he brought in the Marines into a state. Orders for these purposes shall be issued through the governors of the states, or in the case of the District of Columbia, that's Washington, D.C., through the commanding general of the National Guard of the District of Columbia of D.C. In his decision, Judge Breyer took the extreme position that Trump could not use subsection 3 if there was any possibility of executing federal laws absent the use of the National Guard troops. The statute does not allow for the federalizing of the National Guard when the president faces obstacles that cause him to underperform in executing the laws, nor does the statute allow for the federalizing of the National Guard when the president faces some risk in executing the laws. You guys, this is getting so convoluted for me already. I'm losing my mind. You can explain it in the chat if you understand. The statute requires that the president be unable to execute the laws of the United States. That did not happen here. That's their prosecution. In its decision, the court rejected the premise and held that section 12406 does not have as a prerequisite that the president be completely precluded from executing the relevant laws of the United States in order to call members of the National Guard into federal service, nor does it suggest that activation is inappropriate so long as the continued execution of the laws is feasible. It concluded that it is likely that the president lawfully exercised his statutory authority in federalizing control of the Guard. It's also rejected Newsom's claim of a veto on deployment. So this is a federal powers issue. They sided with Trump. They sided against Gavin Newsom. They did have a Democrat on the court who could have gone in dissent and they would have still won 2-1, but they wanted to stay united. That's a very bad sign for Gavin Newsom. If he chooses to appeal this thing up to the Supreme Court, you'll know that he got the message loud and clear. If he does not appeal it, if he feels like he has some kind of cultural power or legal standing, he'll take it up to the Supreme Court and lose there by at least 6-3. So, of course, the only three liberal judges, Kagan, Sotomayor, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, would be the only ones that might support this. And even then, if some of those liberal ones peeled off and joined the conservatives, it could even be a united opinion, 9-0. It would greatly expand with confidence Trump's legal power to use the National Guard in every state if these things break out in like they did in New York, Florida, Chicago. And I don't think the Democrats want to push that to the Supreme Court. What do you guys think? Does Gavin Newsom take this to the Supreme Court, or does he lick his wounds and just kind of take a back seat, which I think he will probably do? Let me know what you think. I'm Doug in Exile.